Okay, we'll just wait for it to go. Everyone's going to get a notification any minute. All right, I think we're live. Awesome. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Jake Sussman Live. And wherever you're watching from, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from in the world. This is so exciting and happy Thursday. So my name is Jake Sussman, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a dyslexia and ADHD influencer, thought leader, and entrepreneur, and founder of Superpower Consulting. We're a global mentorship firm that helps connect kids with dyslexia and ADHD to their own mentor that can help them navigate all the challenges and wins associated with the way they learn. Now, since quarantine, actually a year ago, I started interviewing many different people. From parents to industry leaders, to doctors, to business leaders, and also people like, well, you and I. And we all have at least one thing in common. That's, well, we learn differently. So today, I have someone really cool. His name is Jack Churchill. Now, Jack is the co-founder and CEO, right, Jack? Okay, co-founder and CEO of assistive technology supplier Scanning Pens. And Scanning Pens, I'll let Jack talk a little bit about that, but they are revolutionizing the way that we reach kids, and kids are able to read better and listen to assistive technology. And he's a proud dyslexic and passionate supporter of both children and adults to reach their potential and increase their confidence. And another really cool fact about Jack Churchill is that his great-grandfather is Winston Churchill. And we got a lot of fun things to talk about today. So, Jack, welcome.
Hi, Jake. Thanks so much for having me on your show today. It's a real honor to be with you, and one dyslexic to another, as it were.
You know, I have to say, it's when we first met, I was just, wow. I mean, you're such a leader in this space. And I know that we're talking about Scanning Pens, and I want to know about your story. And tell me a little bit about how you got into this whole dyslexic movement.
Well, I think you're going to ask me a bit later about my dyslexia. So I think we'll come on to that in a bit, presumably. But yeah, so I got involved with Scanning Pens about 17 years ago. There was a company based out of Israel called Wiscom Technologies, and they were looking for someone to be the UK kind of distributor, marketeer of their reading pen, which was quite an innovative technology. I guess that must have been developed around 25 years ago now. And so it was a device, you roll over text and it reads aloud to you. And instantly myself and my university friend Toby Sutton saw this, and we thought, wow, this is something special, and this could really help people. So we, before that, the internet bubble had recently burst. I just lost my first job, really working for an education technology business, and around 2001, and people were looking for things to do. So myself and Toby got together, and we thought, this is a great company doing interesting things. Let's see if we can make a difference in the UK. And so we started out along those lines, as it were.
Wow. And so when you lost your first job, because I think that there's a lot to go in that goes into the adversity of having a learning disability, right? And we kind of just got a little bit of a snapshot of what's happening today, right? But I want to go back in time. Can we do that? Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. I want to go back in time because I know there's a lot of moms and dads watching this, and shout out to all you moms and dads watching this. Again, also I want you to ask questions along the way. There's a little bit of a lag, so I'll do my best to keep track of the feed. But Jack, I want to go back in time to when you were a kid, right? When you were, the earliest that you could remember having dyslexia. What was it like for you when you were first diagnosed, when you first found out you had dyslexia? Because you're doing so much today. You're really pushing to change the world today. But back in the day, it may not have felt like that. So what was that experience like?
Well, times have changed so much, haven't they? I mean, it's just extraordinary. Even just to think about, I was at school in the 80s and early 90s, and then I went on to university. At the age of about 14, I went and got a diagnosis for dyslexia, and it answered a lot of those questions that I guess my parents probably had. I just assumed I was fairly stupid. I was at the bottom of the scores for all the schoolwork that was done. Probably is not allowed to be done nowadays, but there used to be you'd go into your classroom and they'd put the marks up from the homework on the wall, and it would list in order from the people who did the best at the top to the people who did worst at the bottom. And I was quite short anyway for my age, so I found it always quite easy to see my name frequently at the bottom of that list, as it were. So I can read pretty well, actually. I just found it was very slow. So my reading was very slow progress all the time. I got easily distracted, low concentration levels, and actually getting the dyslexia assessment was a really good thing for me. People might say it's a label, but if you don't know that label, then it's hard to address. So I'm always really keen to encourage people to go out there, get dyslexia assessments, and to get the right support they need. I got extra help in my exams. I got extra time in my exams, and I got a lot of extra human support to support me with maths and other areas of the curriculum that I'd been really struggling with. Does that give you a bit of a flavor, Jake?
Yeah, it does, because I'm just thinking back now when I was younger. I mean, for me, it happened when I was in third grade, and when we're first finding out, it's hard. It's confusing a little bit. Did it impact you socially?
Yeah, so I don't know. I just had my gaggle of friends and did stuff with them, but yeah, I didn't really feel much social impact. Let me put it like that, except for the fact that I guess I was behind, and I wasn't a success at school, as it were. So I guess that does affect you probably socially and emotionally a bit, that you're like, hey, how come it's me who's always struggling here? How come other people get it so quickly and can write essays really well and do their work and score top grades, and what's different about me? So there probably was something like that, but I never really appreciated it at the time, and haven't really gone back to think about it too heavily, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I'm sure some people are quite affected socially by it and emotionally. Yeah.
Now, Jack, there's a lot of parents watching this whose kids are struggling right now, and maybe they're struggling with reading, writing, or when it comes to just learning in general, it's just so triggering for them because of how maybe misunderstood that they felt when they were younger. Or no, not they felt, but they are now. Okay. Now you've gone through it already and you've hit success. So what kind of advice can we give to some of the parents whose kids are going through this now? What are some resources out there? Because I know, and I want to talk a little about how scanning peds can make that change for them.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my bits of advice would be most people who have dyslexia don't ever find out they've got dyslexia. So, I think actually doing some of these basic screeners is an initial step that people can do. Speak to the teachers and learning support workers at the school, and find out what they think, and get advice from all the different people involved in your child's education. And I'd say get out there and look on the internet and attend conferences and just find out more information. Your local decodings, your IDAs, these are fantastic organizations. People have gone through this for many, many years. And we're very fortunate nowadays. There's a lot of information, and science now that helps us, work out what the issues are and how to resolve them. Someone said to me at a conference last year, because I've not been to a conference for more than a year now in real life, they said, you don't know what you don't know. So I think that is a great mantra for everybody, really, that, we only know what we know. So we need to get out there, find out more information, dig in deep and learn about a particular topic. And I actually think with COVID and lockdown, a lot of people have suddenly realized that, hang on, my child is struggling here. They're struggling with their homework. They're struggling with their schoolwork. And before, the parents perhaps, to a certain extent, let the school just handle it. But now, they're seeing their child at home because the school's closed, and you're struggling with reading some basic text, for example, and they're thinking, wow, what can I do to actually help my child today? I'm shocked. And I think that was quite an early reality of the school closures and the lockdowns, was a lot of parents got to see firsthand, the struggles that their children were having. I mean, of course, many parents who've got perhaps more time, that they knew that already. But for some parents who perhaps work or have a bit of distance between their children's education, it was a new thing to realize.
It's so interesting you said that. I mean, I've seen so many kids in our program alone. I mean, we've worked with over 85 kids since last March, and we've had the opportunity to see the impact COVID has had on these kids, especially when it comes to education. And there were two surprising observations that I had. One was that for the first time ever, I think, I'm hearing kids actually say they miss school. Like for the first 6 months, from like March of last year until September, October, I'm hearing kids saying they miss school because they miss their friends, or they miss being around other kids. They miss going in person and like being in the classroom. And when you're actually in it, you don't think about it. We take it for granted, right? But now our kids are seeing that there's another reason why we go to school. And I thought that was really interesting. So that was number one. And number two, I think you're right. And a mantra that I caught on this year was that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is that just stuck with me, because I think parents had an opportunity, just like what you're saying, parents had an opportunity to see their kids, not in the end result, how was your day? It was good. Okay. Or how was your day? And then the breakdown. They're seeing their kids in real time, in the moment. And I actually feel, and I'm open to, I wonder what you think about this. Do you think there's going to be is there a revolution in education coming? Is there going to be a mass change, do you think, because of COVID? Do you see where's the future going right now in education?
I think a lot of things are changing, actually. And I think it's not all bad. I think, I've got a 6-year-old, and after the first 3 months of homeschooling, his ICT teacher said that they're already now, these 6-year-olds are now a year to 2 years ahead on their ICT curriculum. So, because they're all using Teams, they know how to print out documents, they know how to scan documents in. A lot of these very young children are using technologies which us adults are using every day of the week. I use Teams for my business, and I was shocked when my 6-year-old came home with his Teams login and was like off and away, and he knew exactly what to do. But I do think a lot of things are changing. I think schooling will become perhaps more hybrid, and people will be distance learning to a certain extent. There's no reason why kids can't do tutoring or courses once a week, out of school time, and learning different subjects and different topics that perhaps their school doesn't cover. I think there's huge opportunity here I think it's probably the same as we have in our workplace, I used to do a lot of conferences. We did about 300 to 400 conferences a year, one way or another, and that's a lot of work, going to trade shows and all the rest. And I think now it's going to be a hybrid. I don't see us ever attending so many trade shows and conferences again. So I think this hybrid model will. It's the same with working from home or working in the office. I think people would like to go in maybe 1 or 2 days a week, but the rest they'll work from home. I think education, maybe the kids will be in school, but I think a lot of the content will be perhaps delivered in new and innovative ways.
Right. Yeah. I'm excited. And I also feel like even companies buying these huge headquarters in Manhattan or these cities, and they have massive square foot rooms and buildings. I think that we as a society have seen, we've realized that we don't need to necessarily be in the physical environment to be productive. And I think kids are seeing this also. How do I create the most optimal environment for myself for success? And sometimes at home isn't the most optimal environment, but then at home, like for me, for example, when I was a kid, home was vacation. So whenever I would go home, I actually would fall apart. I have severe ADHD. And with that comes, when you have inconsistency of environment, it's so hard, especially when you're out of routine, Jack. It's hard to have that consistency. So I would fall apart, and doing work at home was challenging, but I think our kids were forced to find that at an earlier age, which is that's, by the way, I would say the third piece that I found that COVID has taught me was, how are we measuring our kids' success? Are we measuring our kids' success through just IQ-based testing? Or is it something bigger? What about adaptability? Like you run a company, right? How did COVID impact you as a CEO? How did it impact you running a company? And did dyslexia play a role in that? Did your learning difference play a role in how you were able to overcome adversity in the workplace? That's actually my question for you.
That's a very good question. I just, one more thing on the whole home and office working is, I've got friends who commute to work and they commute every day. They've done the same thing for the last however many years. They've hardly spent any time with their children, because of that. They're up before the children are awake and they come home after the kids have gone to bed. And I know dads and mums who now are really happy to have got to spend more time with their children. Some of us have spent too much time with our children now as well. So, there is a balance. Obviously, we're delighted when the schools reopen and they go back to do that. But it is, I think some of this working, in different places and being at home a bit more is really good for children's social and emotional well-being as well. Well, my company, Scanning Pens, is not just me, it's myself and my business partner, Toby. And, in the last 5 years, we've gone from employing no one, just for being two of us, to employing now nearly 90, probably almost 100 people in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and India. And one of the most proud things I feel about my business is the fact that we've not had to make anyone redundant because of COVID. So we were pretty worried back in March time because we were worried about supply. If we can't buy pen scanners, we can't sell them, and factories were closing and networks were shutting down. And anyway, we've been pretty fortunate because we have a very modern business. We use a lot of outsourced warehouses. We've got a modern database. We've got modern IT systems. A lot of businesses who maybe are much older than ours have got legacy systems. And so our employees were instantly able to work from home, instantly able to carry on their jobs. And we had very few infrastructure issues. And, that's been great, really. I find it's very tough for some of the companies who, hospitality and conferencing and, you name it, there's airlines, loads of sectors that have been really badly impacted. But actually, education, we're really fortunate. There's been a huge drive. It seemed like one of the biggest COVID problems was, oh my gosh, our children are not going to be receiving the education they deserve. How can we fix that problem? And so governments quickly got behind the whole idea that education was critical, and threw quite a lot of money at it, and made sure that there was some resources thrown at education. But nothing's perfect. Lots of children don't have computers or ways of working remotely, so some people obviously have done better than others, and some people have got very left behind. We talk about a great divide between part of the population and another part of the population, and there are now going to be children who are going to be a year or so behind already on their studies, and it's dreadful, and we need to try and support those people with catching up now.
How is scanning pens helping with that?
So these are our little pen scanners. They're sort of like portable, battery operated, a rechargeable battery. They've got a little camera on the nose, a screen and a speaker, and they come with headphones. So this technology can be used in the classroom and also at home because it's totally portable. You can take it anywhere. And when you have some text you're not sure about, you just run the pen over the line of text and it reads aloud to you within a couple of seconds. So it gives someone that independence to manage on their own. They're not always having to ask an adult. Imagine, Jake, you're in a class with 30 other kids and you've got a handout you've been told to work on. You're struggling to read some of those words, and you probably speak from experience as well on this, like me. You struggle to read. Do you stick your hand up in front of 30 other kids as a teenager and ask the teacher to come over and help you with your reading? The answer is no. You just skip the words, you carry on.
Read out loud in front of everybody. That was my story. Yeah.
Being forced to read out loud.
Yeah.
That is really tough too. And I think
3 grade levels behind in reading, in 6th grade, forced to read out loud. Come on.
Yeah. And also the books weren't age appropriate either. So there's loads of things that have come along. We don't do that nowadays. We don't ask our children if they don't want to read out loud. We hopefully don't force children to read, like baby books they would consider as baby books when they are, teenagers. There's now lots of publishers who make age appropriate texts, which are printed in a way which is easy to read, large fonts and easily readable. So there is lots of strategies out there for supporting struggling readers. And, often people catch up, it just takes time. And one of the great things about Orton Gillingham is, after a period of time, after say 4 years, those children are hopefully back into mainstream education again, and have caught up to a certain extent. But I think as you get older and older, it gets harder to catch up. So the younger we catch people and we give them those supports that they need, the better their outcomes will be in the end.
Now, I want to hear a little bit from our parents and our audience watching this. If you can share some of your stories, and I want you to know that this is a community, and some of the most powerful, amazing lessons is through sharing. And if you're open to sharing about some of your kids' experience struggling with reading, struggling with their learning difference, I want you to take a minute, and I want you to look at Jack and I, right, as the older version of your kids. Because guess what? We've been there emotionally. We've felt the pain. We've felt the struggle, okay? So let's start sharing a little bit, all right? So while our audience starts writing, Jack, what was your biggest obstacle in school? What was it? Was it reading? Was that the big one?
Reading speed was always a big issue. It would take me twice, maybe 3 times as long to read everything through, and I would kind of lose my thread. And it's like playing snakes and ladders. I would go down the snake and have to start reading everything from the top, or I'd start daydreaming and thinking about something else, and so I think, processing, reading speed, that sort of thing was a problem for me, and concentration. Those were my main issues I had.
Okay, so you had these challenges. And at what point did you have your aha moment that you can actually, in a way, capitalize on your dyslexia? But like, how did you overcome those and enter a world that's going back into education, the place that was so traumatizing? What was your aha moment?
I think for me, it was going to those early trade shows back in 2003, 2004, and seeing parents pick up technology like this and going, did that just read to me? That was for us the moment that we thought, actually, this is really quite clever. These children and adults out there, this is hurdles. Text is a very unusual, difficult thing to decode. And having a small device that would quickly run over text and read it aloud to you. So for me, that's what galvanized what we were doing. It was then a further 10 and 11 years before we actually had any success. So, you know, both my wife and Toby's wife were saying, come on, guys, you need to pack this business in. It's not been successful at all. We've got children now, we've got to feed. You guys need to stop this scanning pens business and get on with the real jobs. And and so it's been so rewarding that we stuck to it. And you know, in the last 6, 7 years, we've had pens approved for use in exams in the UK. So any child can use this orange exam reader pen to take an exam. They don't need access arrangements or accommodations. And recently we've had approval for our pens to go into prison cells in England. So these are breakthroughs which just make me so happy. You know, there's people locked up in prison cells today for 23 hours a day. They don't always have access to support. More than half of them struggle with reading. And if I can get them a $250 pen to read in all those hours that they're locked up, you know, hopefully they'll learn and they'll maybe even get better at reading, and it will help them when they come on the outside of life, outside of jail.
And I'm all about exceeding the value of the dollar, right? So the cost of that pen is a lifetime of opportunities. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
The prison inmates, and in America, we have a huge prison problem. And a lot of the inmates have dyslexia. A lot of, like, I think there was a statistic, and don't quote me on this, and if anyone knows the statistic, please put it in here, but I believe it's almost 80% of inmates are functionally illiterate. That is unbelievable. So imagine if they had this tool to do that, to be able to read. And I know out of the 85 kids that we've worked, young adults, we partner with also foundations that give the scholarships for our mentorship. They give scholarship foundations for dyslexic college students, the Morelli Foundation, and which, by the way, all of you should really look into. It's an amazing nonprofit. They give, for dyslexics, they give scholarships if your kids are interested in STEM. Definitely check them out. They're called the Joseph James Morelli Legacy Foundation, okay? So, but what we've seen is a lot of these kids are struggling getting accommodations because the schools, well, they don't want to give it costs money for accommodations. But what if they had this tool, like what you're saying? I think that's such a game changer. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, there is this, it's got a very depressing phrase, but there's this school to prison pipeline, they call it. And, you know, it's just a slippery slope. Basically, you start feeling left out in class, not being able to access materials, and you slowly feel excluded and you drop out, and you then don't have any qualifications to, you know, get a job, and you then become creative with your, you know, a lot of dyslexic people are highly creative, and you know, it can land them in trouble at the end of the day. So I think if we can support our young people at an early age, we can try and break this, you know, hideous path, this hideous pipeline, and, you know, get people learning on their own, being independent, getting the qualifications they need, and then going on to being, you know, a benefit to society. Because yeah, it costs, I mean, in the UK, it costs something like £100,000 to keep a prisoner locked up for a year. It's a huge cost to society. And that's even before the crime's been committed, you know, that cost as well.
Well, that's,
So
yeah, sometimes even human life, of course. I mean, what you're providing is multiple fronts. And at Superpower Consulting, one of our biggest philosophies is we want to create the willingness to learn. That's part of our mission. There's learning, right, over here. There's learning, but we all think this is where it begins, but there's a whole thing that happens before learning takes place, and that's willingness to learn. That's motivation. That is not on a testing sheet. That's emotional intelligence. That's confidence. That's self-esteem, okay? And we provide that through mentorship, but for what you're doing is you're giving someone hope, right? You're giving someone confidence because they are armed with a tool that can give them the access that they may not have. And look, it takes a lot of strength to raise your hand or seek guidance. I can't tell you the amount of kids, especially guys, like I mean, also women, but guys in particular, I feel we are not very emotionally intelligent. And we don't want to ask for help because that makes us seem weak. But what if we had a tool that can do it for us without us seeking that guidance immediately? We actually can take action, and that's self-advocacy for yourself, right? Who said self-advocacy has to be just to another human being? It can be using a tool. Now, how are you guys coming to the US?
what is the business?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're very much established in the US. We've got about 25 employees. Our office is based out of Clearwater in Florida, and we've got some terrific employees, and we've got business development people scattered across the US who really work closely with school districts and schools to try and introduce them to our technology. Since COVID started, we, as well as offering free trials to schools, we also launch free trials for parents. So parents can effectively try the pen for 14 days, and if they find it's not suitable for their child, they can send it back to us.
How can they find you?
So our website is scanningpens.com, and that's
get that in the chat here. Hold on, let's go. Hold on, scanningpens.com. Okay, just how to make sure.
Yeah, so no, we love being in the States. We attend a lot of the IDA conferences, and we work closely with Decodings and lots of different groups. So the US is fantastic as far as it seems to be. It is a leader in dyslexia thinking and knowledge and research and supports. So, you know, we've actually recently hired a US educator to come and join our team, who is helping to connect us with educators across the US.
That's amazing. We just had a question asked, do the pens only work on books?
The pens are designed for printed materials. So any sort of text you want to decode, if you've got we generally as a company recommend a toolbox approach. So for printed materials, our pens are great, but if you've got a device or a tablet or something, you should also be using other strategies to support reading. So they might be text to speech or voice to text, and your everyday should be made up of lots of different tools to help you get through and make the most out of it. And that might include Grammarly for helping you with your grammar, or spell checkers when you use Word, for example.
Grammarly is a game changer. That was an online game changer for me, especially with spelling.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have gotten to a place with the business. You're doing a lot of cool things. Tell me about this conference coming up with Succeed with Dyslexia. What is this? Because I've seen a lot of social media posting. There's a lot of stuff going on. Tell me about this Succeed with Dyslexia movement. Yeah.
Yeah. So about 3 years ago, we thought it would be good fun and a really positive thing to create a sort of a slogan. So as you can see behind me, there's this tote bag with Succeed with Dyslexia. So we gave them away at the last couple of IDA conventions that they've had over the last few years. And we pushed this whole positivity around dyslexia. We think there's a lot to be positive about. There's loads of great success stories. I mean, obviously not everyone achieves success, but we do think there's a lot about celebrating and supporting and cheering and helping people on that can really, snowball and help make a wider noise, and at the same time raise awareness of dyslexia and raise awareness of the supports that are available. So we set up succeedwithdyslexia.org, and in fact, for the last couple of years, we've done something during Dyslexia Awareness Month in October called Go Red for Dyslexia. So we noticed a number of parent groups around the world were using the color red. They were trying to redeem the color red because it had been written all over their kids' schoolwork.
Oh, it's such a trigger. Oh.
And they wanted to do something positive around the color red because the children had seen it as a negative and all the rest. So we saw that these parents groups in the US and Australia and Canada had been using the color red, and we thought, let's bring them all together. Let's make one bigger, more noisier campaign. And so last October, we got about 200 dyslexia organizations involved with Go Red for Dyslexia. And people were wearing red t-shirts, they were baking cakes that were red, and it was all really good fun. And this year we're going to go and do it all over again and just make it even bigger. And even if we can just connect with one more family and help one more child or adult find out that they're dyslexic and they get the supports they need, then the whole thing has been a success. But we also decided to run a little campaign in the springtime. So we've set up a campaign called Dear for Dyslexia. So Dear is something called Drop Everything and Read. It's done in quite a lot of schools, and it's all about stopping what you do for 15 minutes and reading a book. So the head will stop, everyone in the school will stop, and they'll all read a book for 15 minutes. And it kind of highlights the importance of reading and literacy for enjoyment and also for learning. And we've just jumped on the bandwagon with Dear. We've created a campaign called Dear for Dyslexia, and it's all about dyslexia strategies and supports. So on our website, Succeed with Dyslexia, you'll find all sorts of resources around the Dear for Dyslexia campaign. And absolutely next Tuesday, the 30th of March, we have a 3-hour dyslexia festival, which Jake, you are so kind to come and speak at.
Me?
And
Me?
you.
Oh, get out of here.
So if anyone wants to hear from Jake, come along next Tuesday. It's totally free, and it's meant to be there for parents and for teachers and school leaders to come and just find out ideas and support. So we've got some fantastic speakers actually, as well as Jake. There's a great lineup of distinguished people all giving up their time to share knowledge and best practice.
I am so excited for that. And any opportunity to be able to share is important, because I think that as the more people that share, the more our movement is heard. And when I say movement, I mean this is so much bigger. When we give someone the human right to read, it is a human right. It's a human right, right? So when we provide access for a child to read, that's one step closer to saving the world. Because to read is power. That is well, I say control, but it's more inner control. It's knowledge. It's freedom. It is freedom. It's making yourself the right to choose. I mean, there's so much propaganda out there, and we're so vulnerable, and our kids are exposed to so much. So if our kids know how to read and decipher and understand words, I think that is one step closer to a better and safer world. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Jake. It's total access, and if you cannot read that menu in a restaurant, if you cannot read the message that's come into you, it just prevents you from it. And you know what? It really hits your confidence. Confidence is a huge part of it, and if young people lack confidence, then that's not a good thing. We need to help them be confident, independent young people ready to go and work in the world and make the world a better place.
Absolutely. So, Jack, I have a question for you. What is, I love asking this question. What is your superpower? And I'll give you some time to think about it, but what is your superpower?
I don't know. I just
do me, you know.
No, I do. I do know. I think it's although I've not been asked that question before. I mean, often my superpower makes me look foolish, but it does sometimes. What's that?
You look great.
So I just think it's we have. I mean, I sit on probably like everyone else Zoom calls and Teams calls from dawn till dusk. I'm the guy throwing in the little hand grenades of somewhat foolish ideas from time to time, and sometimes those ideas people go, actually that's a great idea. So if I haven't asked my colleagues yet, but I would hope that some of them said, Jack, 1 in 10 of the times he pipes up and says something, he comes up with a really great idea. So I'll ask them.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, by the way, the way the world's going to change, the way that we drive innovation is by those who look at the world differently, those who think differently, and those are our kids. And for our parents watching, I just want you to know that your kids, where you are right now, may be a foggy road, right? It may be foggy. You may not be able to see the end of the road, but I can assure you that as long as you keep believing in your kids, giving them the access and the belief in themselves that they can get through it, that sun is shining no matter what on top. No matter, even if it's the worst hurricane out there, the sun's still shining over those clouds. Okay, so know that you just got to stick with it, and we're here. This is what it's all about. We're bringing together people from around the world, like Jack, okay, who is literally changing the world in the respect of pens, providing opportunities for kids to read better and to understand better. That's what we have to do. And Jack, I did have a final question here, because I know that some of our audience was asking a little bit about your great grandfather. What is something that he has taught, that like his story has taught you, or that you have taken from what he's accomplished into your own life?
Well, I think his language, he was a prolific speechwriter and writer as well. But some of his quotes are just fantastic, and he is often misquoted, or people attribute quotes to him. He's very lucky; he has quotes attributed to him which he never said as well. So that's quite a nice thing to have, I think, in life. Have people to say you're wonderful and you did this and that when actually you never even did it. But there are some authorized books which have the definitive quotes in that he did. But one of the best quotes, I think, which is sort of, in fact, I've got two. So is never, never, never give in. I think that is a really powerful line, which he does then go on to say, except, in cases of, you should sometimes give in if it's a bad idea, or if it's a mistake. But genuinely, if you believe in something, if you believe in yourself, just go, as it were. The other thing I quite like is during the war, he used to use a little red stamp, like a stamp thing, and he would stamp documents and say action this day. Action this day would be a mantra he would use a lot to try and, it's no good doing this tomorrow or next week. I am a great procrastinator, and I'd love to not be that person who procrastinates, but I can think of 2 jobs I've been thinking about for the last month I should have done, and I've still not done yet, but I'm going to try and do them today now we've discussed this. But action this day, you can do it today. Don't put it off. Get on with it and achieve it. I wanted just to go back to your last point, which was a bit about diversity. it's the workplace is now looking for diversity, and we've done diversity a lot, with different types of people, male and female people in the boardroom. There is now this big push for neurodiversity, and big organizations are now reflecting on the fact that they need dyslexic people to join their board and to be part of the conversation. A great reminder of the mistake of employing the same people was 9/11, which was an extremely tragic event, but it was acknowledged that the same type of person was employed to protect the interests of the United States, and there weren't enough people thinking differently, thinking out of the box. And it's so important that all organizations employ diverse people to help them understand their customers, because that is what is so important to making a successful modern business.
Yes. What an ending. Wow. Well, Jack, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. And I got a chance to learn from you. You are a role model. You're a leader. I admire your work and what you're creating. And for our audience that came on with us today, thank you for joining us, taking some time out of your day or evening to watch Jack and hear Jack's story. So Jack, really, thanks again. And I hope to see you on here soon, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks so much, Jake.
Awesome, Jack. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.